Welcome to Preps Plus Extra, the Journal Sentinel's high school sports show. How you doing? I'm Mark Stewart, prep editor of the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Joining me as always, JR Radcliff, sports editor of Now Newspapers. How you doing this lovely April afternoon?
Doing great. One last time with the Preps Plus Extra for the season, so it's a bittersweet moment, I guess, for us on the mini show here.
Yes. And as we wrap up, this year of Preps Plus Extra. Last week we talked about boys' accolades and postseason honors. This week we're going to do the same thing for the girls. For statewide, Arike Ogumbawale from Divine Savior Holy Angels was the Associated Press, as well as the Gatorade State Player of the Year. And then Samantha Terry from Baraboo, who's going to UW Green Bay, was the Miss Basketball from the Wisconsin Basketball Coaches Association, which, for those who don't know, it's a senior-only award. So that eliminated a lot of candidates. So that said, as was the case last week, we're coming out with our all area team, and we're working on that. You're a little ahead of the game as far as that goes, and you've kind of decided some things. So tell us a little bit about who leads your team.
For the girls, our player of the year is Mackenzie Latt from Sussex Hamilton. Now, again, to talk about our coverage area, we don't cover schools in the city proper of Milwaukee. So we don't cover DSHA. We don't cover Milwaukee Pius, which had a great year, has some very good players, particularly in the junior class. And we don't cover Wisconsin Lutheran, and we may not have quite the same coverage area as the Journal Sentinel. But in the communities we cover, which is upwards of like 25 to 27 schools, Mackenzie was the winner from Sussex Hamilton. She's a 6'1 junior post, was a huge reason why the team has been back-to-back conference champions in the GMC. Before she got there, the school hadn't won any conference title in their school history. They've won 2 of them now. They were a real player on the scene to get to state this year. They got upset in the regional by Arrowhead. Ladd actually got hurt in that game in the fourth quarter. It was tied, and she went down, and Arrowhead was able to pull away and win. So definitely a little motivation going forward. Just a very smart player, a kid who's developed over the last few years, and will be coming back, and Hamilton will be very good again next year. It was a pretty close vote with Franklin's Cassidy Mahalka, who actually, like Latt, was not the conference player of the year. In the Southeast, it went to Tamia Sims of Oak Creek, who's a junior. Mahalka's a senior for Franklin, but she's been very steady. She was one of the top career scorers in our area. Mahalka was, in fact, I believe she was number 1, and she led Franklin to that upset of Oak Creek in the playoffs and got them to the sectional final. Very good year for the Sabres. It kind of got overshadowed because the Knights were very good, but Mahalka's been one of the top players in the area for several years now. Yeah,
and then what direction did you go as far as your coach?
Oh, Coach of the Year for the second straight year, Gary Schmidt for New Berlin Eisenhower, and he really did a great job because he had Miss Basketball last year, Nicole Bauman, who's now playing at the University of Wisconsin, and they went to the state championship game, and they lose her, and you figure they'll still be decent, but you can't expect them to go back to the state championship game, but that's exactly what they did with Jenny Whelan and Katie Lang leading the way, a couple seniors who were on last year's team. They get back to the state final, and they end up falling to Notre Dame, but pretty remarkable that Eisenhower was able to return. They've been there now 3 times in 4 years. They've been at the state title game.
Yeah, and Gary's one of those guys. He just, every year, it seems like, regardless of the players, that he does a great job over there. So, it's hard to argue with either of those choices. From the Journal Sentinel's standpoint, our coverage area is in essence, Milwaukee County, Waukesha County, Racine, Kenosha County, Washington County, and we take a little piece of Ozaki. We part of Ozaki, not all of the schools in Ozaki, and Mackenzie Ladd is definitely an all area candidate. But as far as player of the year goes, right now, like I said, we haven't finalized anything, but you got to look at Arike and even a girl like Gabby Ortiz from Racine Prairie, a fantastic player down there at a smaller school that's, going to get some serious, player of the year consideration. Coach of the year, I thought about Gary Schmidt, another great year by him and his program. Todd Froworth over at McWanago, great season. Donald Nelson at Riverside, Riverside already had high expectations, and he really amped it up even more when he said, we got one goal, and that's a state championship, and they really rallied and kind of showed what they were made of after that slow start. So there's going to be a lot. There's a lot of good candidates out there on the girls' side, and it's just going to be part of the fun of spring. The way I look at it is kind of hashing that out with an eye on, the sun and the warmth, outside,
Right.
knowing that, things are starting to heat up. So, so like I said, that wraps, wrap up a, pretty good year for high school hoops in the area.
Yep. And if people want to check out our all-area teams, all suburban teams for both boys and girls, they can go to mycommunitynow.com, surf around on there. Suburbansportsroundup.com, they'll be available on there as well. So you can check out all of our selections.
Nice plug there. Yeah. And like JR said earlier, this is the final episode of Preps Plus Extra. And as we say goodbye, we might as well, share our thoughts on, kind of when you look back at the football and basketball seasons, winter and fall sports, what's going to stick with you for, this year?
We're talking about dominant programs. Arrowhead football and Germantown boys basketball both really raised the bar this year. And Arrowhead, they have a second-year coach. They had a second-year coach in Greg Malling this year, and they just tore up everybody. They played some really good teams, starting with a Minnetonka team from Minnesota in the very first game of the year, and they actually trailed at halftime. I think it was 21-6 or 21-7,
right.
And they came back and won. They moved Dom Tottarello, who's one of the better athletes in the area, who not necessarily a Division I athlete, but a guy who just excels at everything, baseball, basketball, football. They moved him from running back to quarterback. He led them on this crazy comeback, and they won. And then they weren't tested the rest of the year. They blew out Sun Prairie in the state title game. They led 35-0 at halftime. Just an awesome showing and one of the more dominant performances we've seen coming from a program that's had their share of dominant showings. So really a remarkable achievement for them. And then Germantown, they're chasing the longest winning streak in boys basketball in state history. It's spanned 2 seasons now, back-to-back undefeated state championships, and they definitely have a shot to break the record.
Yeah, and for me, I do think back to that Arrowhead squad, and again, congratulations to Greg Malling and his staff, because walking into Arrowhead is not, as a coach, there's some pretty big shoes to fill there.
Definitely.
And to get that state championship, I know he always said it was about the the kids, and he had some great kids to work with, and that was true. But their staff did some nice things, schematically, and obviously recognizing a guy like Tottarello and being able to take advantage of his multiple talents was fantastic. The other thing that's going to stick out to me is, especially on the boys' side of basketball, I mean, this is a fantastic time for basketball in the area. When you look at some of the, obviously you had Germantown, which was nationally ranked this year, but player-wise, you got guys like Luke Fisher from Germantown going to Indiana, Diamond Stone, a sophomore from Dominicans, one of the top sophomores, maybe the top, depending on whose ranking you believe,
right,
in the nation. Kevon Looney, the junior from Milwaukee Hamilton, top 10 prospect in his class. And then you got strong seniors like Dwayne Wilson, Deontay Burton. This was a really great year for high school basketball in the area. Well, that'll wrap up another strong winter sports season, and obviously those basketball players have some major shoes to fill for next year. So that said, me and JR gave you our highlights of the fall and winter sports season. Let's take a look at a video of some of the other big moments from this year.
Our first goal was to, get the gold ball, and when I found out about Mr. Basketball, it was just, an added bonus.
Winning as an individual was just a bonus. I'm so proud of all my teammates on both the boys and the girls' side.
It feels like a family. Me and my sisters did it. We worked hard to get to this point, and we got this gold ball.
I think you want to stay grounded. Nowadays, with all the stuff going on with the internet and Twitter and all the stuff, the influences you can have.
finally get that first WIA championship is absolutely huge. We worked so hard.
Was utterly amazed on how many people that he had there supporting him.
I feel like everybody on our team is a star, 1 through 14. You know, everybody has a role in the team.
Well, that wraps it up for the final edition of Preps Plus Extra. We really appreciate you joining us this year. Till next year, I'm Mark Stewart. That's JR Radcliff. Take care.